That's funny. Um, and I think we're live now. Let's check. Am I live? Let's double check before we just end up talking to ourselves.
Before we say really mean, awful things that no one was supposed to really hear.
There's like a 10-second delay on this thing for some reason. Well, not for some reason. That's like the default Twitch setting. Oh. Oh, okay. There we go. It gives me an option to start recording and start streaming.
Oh, cool. We're doing this via Twitch?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's this new thing. I like live stream. I still, I guess.
Oh, man. But live stream is like, that's so old school.
It is old school. There we go.
Right, well, let me promote this, too, with my friends.
Oh, sweet.
Hey, look at this. Yay.
I'm talking to this crazy guy. Yay, it's working. What's up, guys? Welcome.
Yay, hi.
So, while Karla is sharing this, I'll say hi to everybody. I'm Ricky from Draw or Die, and for the people, because this is going to go on YouTube, for people that don't know what Draw or Die is, it's a Facebook group where we do, we post work for crits, we get feedback. The biggest rule is no art dumping. We ban people for that. It's kind of, for the reasons that it's kind of selfish to go in there and just poop your artwork on everybody and be like, hey guys, look at me, I'm so awesome. Like, we don't want that. Like, we kind of, there's a purpose behind the group, and the purpose is to get better. And we do monthly challenges, which are called Ascensions. So Karla judged Ascension 25, which was the October challenge, and it was the Halloween challenge, which was to...
It was so cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was to recreate your a Hollywood, was it a horror flick monster? And it was a lot of fun. So that's what Draw or Die is in a nutshell, just to let you guys know. So we can go ahead and get started with the questions. We're gonna keep this short and sweet, kind of like I think I wanted to say this today because a lot of people don't like, they watch interviews and they get caught up in like, oh, what brushes does Karla use, and what kind of computer does she use, and the thing about these interviews that I get when I watch them is I want to know about the struggle, and
it's real.
Yeah, the struggle is real, and and at the end of the day is I think a lot of people kind of look at people like Karla, like, really, really great artists, and they forget that they went through struggles as well, and stuff that you're probably going through, and
still going through.
yeah, still going through, and that they're human just like everybody else. So I don't want to speak for Karla and say that she's been through I don't know what, but that's kind of what that's kind of what I want to get out of these interviews. So let's get started.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We'll start with the basic question, like, just, I guess, tell us, where you grew up, like, hometown, all that stuff, and what was it like growing up for you? Like, initially, did you know you wanted to be an artist, and how was school for you? Were you like that person that everybody's like, oh, Karla's the artist? Like, were you that person, or how did that go?
Yeah, well, I was born in Puerto Rico. It's a little island in the Caribbean. I've always been drawing ever since I remember. I think I used to be a pretty shy child, and I grew up for the most part, by myself. I have a lovely half sister, but she was 5 years difference. She was in another household, and my parents always tried their best to, move into neighborhoods with lots of kids, but they would always fail really badly at it. Like I'd always end up in a place where there were like no kids. But even when there were lots of kids, like I'd have my moments of bravery, and I'd be like their leader, and then I'd immediately just get really tired of that role, and then go hide in a corner and draw instead. I remember being, I had a very short run as the best artist in the school for, pretty much just elementary and grade school and all that. Like, I draw the shit out of like Sonic the Hedgehog or or like Lion King or something like that, and people would be like, "Oh, draw me as like a toon, or draw me as a cartoon," and I try my best, and they get really excited. It was an easy way to make friends for someone that was really shy growing up. Um, but then I moved when I became a little older. I went to an art high school in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has these like different high schools that devote themselves to various specialties. You'd had one for like music, you'd had one for dance, you'd had one for theater, and I went for the one for painting. So I immediately went from being the best kid in the school to being the just another bleep in a school. but it was really exciting because it was just like, oh, cool, I get to, it felt like I was reading Harry Potter at the time, and I was just like, I'm in like Hogwarts for art. Just because, well, the school in itself was like, this like giant old Spaniard building. It had like 5 floors. It had like the haunted attic. It had like
That's awesome.
all kinds of statues and like gargoyles and columns, and it had like secret bunkers with like rumors of like students who left and died there. And it had a really creepy basement, and yeah, and the way that the schooling would be, you'd start out like, I don't know how it is in the States, how like you know the names used, but you start out in like 7th grade, and from 7th grade to pretty much 9th grade, everybody would have to take like general art classes. So we talk about the fundamentals, we talk about all kinds of basic stuff, and then afterwards, once you reach from like 10th grade to like senior year, you'd move into like different specialties, and you'd have like, you could go to like sculpture, you could go to graphic design, you could go to all kinds of things. Well, I went to painting, or what the place was actually called Drawing and Painting, and it was head by, I still remember his name, Mr. Vega. And Mr. Vega was just legendary in school for being just horrifying. Everybody was so scared of him, and he was so demanding. Like when I decided to go to that course, I heard so many people be like, "No, Karla, don't do that. Like go to an easy class. Don't go to that one." But I'm like, no, because I want to learn how to draw, and I'm glad I did. Like he was an incredible teacher, and incredibly scary for sure. Like we would have these like wooden floors, and he'd wear these like very like like shoes with heels on them, and he purposely like would step really hard on the wooden floor as he'd pass around. Like he just had this like such a stern face too, and like, oh man, he'd scare the crap out of everybody. Like he'd be one of those ones where like you'd go up to him and you'd try to give him a joke or try to make friends, and he would just like glare at you, and you're like, oh god, don't kill me. But his really tough training, like from an early age, I learned a lot about discipline. My father also helped me out a lot with that. I was a teenager, and I just wanted to hang out with friends and stuff like that, and I was also very lazy. So it was, my dad helped me out a lot with that. He's a musician himself, and he once got really, really mad at me. He's like, Karla, you can't like slack off in art. If you want to make money, go do something else. It's easy, but this is not an easy road, so you can't slack off. And in hindsight, it wasn't that bad of a moment, but back in my youth years, I was like, oh no, I'm being scolded.
But that's awesome though that he did that.
I've been I've had very supportive parents, both of artistic nature. My mother, she focuses on like wardrobe design slash fashion design for like film and movies, and my dad is a musician, and so they kind of understood from an early age, that I really wanted, what I needed in order to, kind of grow. Um, I think now that I think about it, most of my family members are, some kind of creative field. At least, my immediate family, like my grandma, she was a writer as well, and my aunt is a painter, and so there was a lot of artistic, personalities in my family, um, to which I'm very grateful for. um, what else did you ask?
Let's see. I was talking about the early years, and I think you answered it all because I think the next question was going to be like how supportive were your parents, and that's really awesome that they were. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so now the question is, what kind of this is like just because you were mentioning you were going to the school, so like was there something they concentrate because it's obvious that like your work looks very painterly, so like what medium did you guys focus on when you were going to school?
Well,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh, Problems. We had problems. There's Michelangelo. Oh, there's your
are you
turtle.
t- are you telling them about my Michelangelo face?
I I think they saw it. That's funny.
That's yeah, that's I want to let everybody know that like two things. I want to let everybody know two things. Number one, that's the face that all the art directors I've ever worked with over Skype has seen. And then number two, I'm doing the Skype call through my phone, and I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but like my cheeks are so big that like I constantly hit the buttons
It happens to
on
me.
the phone, and like I either mute people or I hang up. So like this is gonna happen. So just deal.
It's fine. It works. Yeah, we kept
But
hanging up. Carla's got her cheeks are too big.
they're too big. They're too big. To get like one of those cheek reduction shit. But what was the question? Oh god damn
Med-
it.
the medium you guys was there a medium
Oh
you guys
yeah.
focused on?
So it was funny because like that was just so I kind of had like my initial introduction to a lot of different mediums, you know, back when I was in high school. Um, I pretty much only worked with acrylics and coloring pencils, like, and I hadn't ever imagined that like digital art was a thing up until I was like maybe like 12, 13, or something like that, and I got my first computer. And I joined an online community. Oh God, this is really embarrassing. I joined an online community, for written role play.
What do you
Like,
mean role play?
oh man. So like for example, like it would be like a message board, and I'd be a character, and then I'd write what my character was doing, and then someone would respond back, and like some of these things would get really really elaborate. So like I would always draw my characters, and I would always try and figure out a way to how to put them in the computer. And you know at that time, like my parents got me a scanner, so I got a scanner, but like after a while, like the coloring pencils of like my characters would look like crap, so I just kind of started working out, in like MS Paint. And
On
then later on, like, after a lot of research, I found, oh, you could do things in Photoshop, or you could, there are painting programs. Oh, Painter, cool. And that was like my first introduction to digital. And that was, all mouse and all horrible. And like, yeah, it was, and the funny, the funny thing is like that, like, it made me, in a way, it was like my earliest form of concept art too. Now that I think about it, just that silly role play. And it was Dragon Ball Z, by the way. It was a Dragon Ball Z channel.
Oh wow.
This is embarrassing. Screw it, YOLO.
YOLO. Yeah.
But yeah, when I was very young, it was mostly just coloring pencils and acrylics. It wasn't until I got to college that I tried out oils for the first time, and I loved it. And oils was just like, oh my god, this is the medium. And it wasn't even until I went to the atelier later on that that's where I learned most of the skills and most of what I know today. And most of, I've always had a slightly painterly look, but I think it was refined with my training there.
Okay. Well, that's yeah, it's very obvious. Like looking at your stuff, I'm looking at it right now, and it's so painterly and so now the question, like I guess I'm just going off on like what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
So you went to this school where all these people like here's what like the baffling part about like everything like okay you went to school with all these other artists and now the question is like what made you the successful one like where's everybody else were they successful were they not did they fail and what do you think it was that made you different like I don't want like obviously I don't want to be pretentious about things and I don't want to be like oh this is why I'm so great but
this is why I'm cool. No.
exactly but what do you think it
um,
was that made you I guess
I think
different.
I think I have a good story to answer that. When I was in college, I had to get a job somehow. And I was just like, shit, I'm going to go do the job thing. I'm going to go get a job somewhere. And I took this job at this French cafeteria, super close to my job. I mean, super close to my school. And I was so bad at that job, so horrible, that like I got fired on the second day of training.
You
Of
got
training.
fired during training.
Yeah, yeah, I got fired during training.
How do you
Like the lady that was training me was like, I can't do this. So I, I was really depressed by that because I'm just like, oh my god, am I that like useless that like
oh
I I can't I can't do this. And again, here comes my father. He's like, well, that just means you better get really good at painting because you really can't do much of anything else. I'm like, yeah, he's right.
that's kind of sad but good in a way in a way.
So for me, like, not being an artist and not working as an artist, it's not an option. I mean, yeah, there were moments in my life that I, played around with, being something else or being a different profession. But whenever I would like take the steps to really consider it, there would always be this like panic that was just like, but you wouldn't paint for a living. And I've just always been fascinated by it. And I've always been fascinated by, a couple marks here, a couple marks there, and something feels tangible. Holy crap. Like how?
Mm.
And that still drives me today. That still is like really exciting to me. So it's one of those things where it's just like I think it was just I had no choice. And in terms of like, I can't say this. Some of my fellow high schoolers are an artist today. I've kind of fallen out of touch with a lot of them. But yeah, I think for me it was just like I just couldn't do anything else, and I didn't want to do anything else. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I had to learn the skills that and the techniques that I needed to learn in order to be able to survive as an artist.
Cheap plug right here. It was draw or die.
Yeah. Yes, I went to the future and joined Draw or Die, and then went back to the past. No, but it's funny. We were talking about this before. The whole thing. Like communities, online communities, are the thing that like well, I mean, for me, back in the day, it was conceptart.org. When I joined it, I saw people just one working their ass off, and I saw, professionals, and I would see, oh, that's their work. That's what that looks like. Holy shit. And I had a little bit of previous experience on what professional artists did with like Braun and Ian McKeag, but it never felt so close as to, being concept art and being able to like message people. And then suddenly also seeing a large group of people who are all, passionate about skill, passionate about technique, and they're all about the same, wavelength and level as you were, and you were just like, oh my god, comrade, let's work together. And you join challenges, and you draw, and you push yourself to draw. And that was really important, because even when I was in college, like, I felt like not a lot of people had interest in what I wanted to do, which was concept art, which was, illustrations. Most people wanted animation or 3D or something like that. So I didn't really have a community. I didn't really have like anyone to like work with and study with and get excited with. And that online community really helped me out. And having an artistic community is pivotal to any artist. I feel like if you look at history, all the major artists always had like a big old posse of
Yeah.
people that they would talk to constantly, that they would like work with. And so groups like Draw or Die are very important to this effort, are very important to students, and even to professionals, especially when you're like in a remote location where it's not easy to find someone that has the same passions that you do, that will push you to like learn or something like that.
Exactly. I totally agree with that, and that's the fun part about this whole thing is camaraderie and even competition, friendly competition. I think that's what pushes me the most. But um, so
Yeah.
now looking back at, I'm still stuck on these early days as always.
Yeah.
Your influences at this time, like, did they change, and who were they, like, before you got into digital art and then after you got into digital art? Like, I know there's that like misnomer of like, oh, digital art's not art, and I'm just like, fuck you, dude, they don't know. But because originally I'm a pencil artist, so I know it's I haven't done much painting, but I know it's the same concept. You values color, you know. But who were your influences like early on, and then did they change later on when you picked up digital art?
Oh. Hmm. Well, I think it's interesting. My influences early on were mostly media based. I did have a series of fantastic, like Brother Grimm's, like illustrated books from Spain, and those were just beautiful, beautiful. It looked like some Arthur Rackham or something like that. But when I was very, very young, even though that was very beautiful, that wasn't the thing that influenced me the most. The most was like, I was really into Disney when I was like a child, like, 5, 6, 7. And then video games happened, and that just blew my mind. And suddenly I was all about like Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff. But the one that really like started to change what I drew, because most of the time I was just drawing cartoons when I was a child. As I grew older, Final Fantasy VII came out,
Yeah.
and when I first opened like the instruction booklet and saw the
Yes.
characters, I was like, "Oh my god!" And then I just started drawing anime like crazy. Like it was just like someone hit a switch, and I was just like obsessed, and it was all I could ever draw. Up until one day, and there's two instances. One, and I've told this story a lot, but it's so important. I was walking to the bakery in the morning, and with my father, and a new store had opened up, and it was a magic a magic store. And right on the window of the store, there was this gigantic poster of like this illustration. It was just like this badass, dark winged angel with his spear and armor. It was just like, oh my god, what is this? It was Desolation Angel, and it was painted by Brahm. So I immediately went to that, to the store. I didn't even tell my dad. I just like whoosh, and I got my first package of Magic cards, and within them there was like these amazing illustrations of and paintings that I'd never seen. Like, this is as cool as like a video game or a movie, but in a painting, hell yeah. And then later on, when as a high school student, like, we'd always used to go to the Borders. That was just the thing to do. And the first Star Wars movies, the prequels came out,
Uh-huh.
and the first art book I opened up and saw Darth Maul drawn, and it was just amazing. I've never seen anyone draw like that, and it was Ian McKay. So, two of my major influences when I was growing up was from media. As I entered college, but specifically as I entered the atelier, I actually started knowing more about more classical artists. I just became obsessed with them. To this day, I still am. Specifically, also concept art. I learned a lot about different artists via concept art. I remember the first day I found out who Sargent was. I was in college, and I was just like scrolling around concept art and found this thread and just Sargent paintings. And I was like, my God, who is this? This is beautiful. And I'm like, this is just perfection. And yeah, it's almost like someone's turned a switch on for me. So it kind of went like Disney and cartoons, and then video games with Sonic the Hedgehog, and then Final Fantasy, and then Magic the Gathering, Star Wars, and then the internet.
Wait! You forgot the role playing.
Oh yeah, that too. But that, I feel like that's that kind of goes in with media, just because like I wouldn't have never found that out had I not been watching like DBC on Toonami. Oh man,
So
those were some good days.
so it looks like your taste got more mature as you went through like your influences, and I think that's like a natural progression.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
yeah.
But the question is, it almost feels like, I don't want to go there, but it almost feels like you've always constantly been pursuing, like, since you were a kid, because you went to school. But was there a time that you said, like you said, you got fired on this on the second day of work?
Oh, there's been plenty of times in which art became scary. In which like the real possibility of this thing that I love, and and I love to do, that I may not be good at it, or that I may fail at it. Those became very strong fears, especially in my earlier years. And even every once in a while, they kind of creep up, right? Like, whenever I feel like I'm not doing good on a painting, or I'm not pushing myself the way I know that I can. Like, I always feel like, am I going rusty? Am I going this? Am I going that? But when I was younger, there were plenty of times where I would look at like when I first looked at Ian McKay, or when I first looked at Wesley Bird, or any of those artists that were just magicians to me. Like, I went through a period of
you're that for a lot of people, by the way, but keep going.
yeah, I would say I went through a period of like depression, I guess. It was the biggest one and the worst one was in college. And it lasted for about a month and a half or so, where I just didn't paint. I didn't do anything. I didn't know how. Like, because here I had all the, anatomy studies, and here I was working my ass off, and I was trying so hard, and nothing that I did was, look like anyone else's, and, or looked as good as anyone's. And I almost quit. I almost quit art entirely. I thought maybe I could just quit it and just, go off, be a scientist or something else. And, my dad being the wisest, musician that he is, he told me, like, Karla, like, you're not an artist unless you want to quit at least once. So he's like, welcome. I'm just like, what? Shut up.
Oh wow, that's a good quote. I've
Yeah.
never heard that one before.
Well, the thing, and he was right. And even to this day, I'm amazed. Another moment that kind of like opened my eyes was, just a round table of, my peers and people that I used to look up to, and everybody, just in that table alone was just talking about like how difficult it was to paint and how difficult it was to be an artist and like how they weren't good. Oh, but the person next to them, they were great. Oh, they weren't good. And then suddenly it became this weird pity party with like some very prominent artists. And I'm just like, man, everybody feels this way. Or and I hope he doesn't mind me quoting him, but one of my first weeks at ILM, I was having a really hard time with the painting, and I was just, man, today it kind of sucked. And I went to the elevator, and Ian McKeag, who I was working with at the time, he comes to the elevator, and he's just like, today was so difficult. And I'm like, wait, what? Why? He's like, well, I couldn't quite capture the essence of this character, and it's bothering me, and I don't know what's going on. This is duh. And he looked really like, bothered by it. And I was just like, holy crap, even this guy has off days. Even this guy has moments where like, it's difficult. But, the next day he came in earlier than anybody and just got it done. And got it done so well. And I think that's kind of the thing about all this, the failures, they come in many different shapes and sizes, but it's really about just taking a deep breath and going at it even harder next time and better prepared. Is it information that you're lacking? Is it practice that you're lacking? And and approaching that, and approaching your next painting with that in mind, like, oh, I didn't do this part very well the last time, so I'm going to try my best to do it better this time. And I'm also going to do a bunch of studies before it, and I'm also going to practice it a lot. And then before you know it, you're doing amazing things. I mean, it's just technique at this point, though. Like, and that's the thing. Technique is a skill. It's like people always talk about like how easy it is to build muscle. Or, you grab a set of weights, you eat properly, and you do the proper form. Any kind of creative skill, at least in the technical aspect, is exactly the same way. You read the right books, you paint the right things, you do it with proper form, and then before you know it, you know how to do it with your eyes closed. Well, I mean, not with your eyes closed, sometimes actually, but but it's the same thing. And I wish I knew that when I was younger, and I wish that I hadn't felt failure as a reflection of myself, but rather a reflection of the lack of knowledge I had at the time, or the lack of practice I had at the time. I think I would have been a much kinder person to myself, and I think I would have, been able to progress a lot more had I known that,
That's good stuff. And that's what that's the question I get. I'm pretty sure you obviously you probably get it if you respond, because I know you're busy, but I'm pretty sure you see that a lot from people is the doubt, and
Oh yeah.
that's what the group is about. That's like what I tell people. It's like, dude, just fucking go, just do it. Like
worldwide. It's worldwide, and without sounding pretentious, like I literally do workshops all over the world now, and the fears that people have, they're the same in every continent, and they're the same fear. They're, I can't make this look like, how I want it to look like. I can't, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I have the time. I don't know if I have the talent. I don't know if, it's just, I meet so many people with, big question marks in their faces. And, and all it is just literally practice. That's all it is. It's doing the right kind of training in order to get your technique down, and it takes time. You know, that's the other thing too. I think another thing that I was really frustrated at when I was young is that I wanted my work to be good right away. And it was in hindsight, it was such an impatient and illogical thing to think that your work can miraculously and out of nowhere, be amazing. It takes time. It just takes time. It takes time, going out, drawing people, drawing, places, plein air painting, doing studies, doing master studies, painting from statues, and doing it a lot. And then reading books and, grabbing the knowledge that they bring and putting it directly onto your paintings and see what happens. And it takes time. But that's it. That's all it is like time and practice and knowledge and yeah, and community too. Like, that's super important. Like, I wouldn't be the artist I am today if I didn't have the community, or if I didn't meet the people I had met through the communities. So yeah, do the online thing, you guys. Now's your time to plug.
I know, draw or die.
Yeah, plug it.
But I don't want to go over like the time that we were trying to set, but I'll ask one last question that's like just me
I
asking.
think we can go maybe 10 more minutes.
Okay.
That would be fine.
Okay, that's cool. I'll ask about, you were talking about impatience, and I see a lot of people. I've been lucky enough to be that idiot that is known and land gigs here and there, but there's a lot of people that have trouble. I don't know what it is, whatever it is, to find jobs or whatever, and they get very frustrated, and they're like, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and blah blah blah, and I'm not getting jobs. And David Levy, I'm sure you know who David Levy is. He was
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he was telling me about how much he had to wait to find jobs, and how much he went through, and the word patience when it comes to art, and not just patience, but you're working your ass off and waiting. How did it? Now my question to you is, like, how did it work for you? Like, when you came out and looked for jobs, like what struggles did you go through during that time?
I mean, that's something that everybody goes through, right? Like, I was very conscious that the jobs that I wanted, like, I wanted to work for film when I was younger, or, and I was very conscious that my skill set wasn't exactly at that point for me to be able to get that kind of work. So I always kind of placed priority on my studying, even if I was working freelance or anything on the side, because I knew, and not just because I knew, but also, just by observation, like, if you get your work up to par, like, jobs just kind of start happening. For me personally, I got my first gig in this, like, tiny, local game company. And I was just kind of drawing, in the school cafeteria, and these two dudes came in. They're like, hey, we're looking for an artist who can do storyboards. Can you do storyboards? I'm like, yeah, I can do storyboards. And so I kind of got started doing storyboards for this. God, what was it? I think it was like an Agatha Christie computer game. And then there were none, I think. And I was so excited, and they needed so many storyboards, and they were paying so very little, but I didn't care. It was my first, like, actual job, and I was like, oh my God. So I did, like, 80-something storyboards in, like, a weekend with color. I almost died. And, and that was, like, my first little tiny gig, and then by doing that little tiny gig, I got to meet, some of the people that were in the very, very small local scene in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That's where I was. And I would also do I would meet with like local authors. Sometimes I do like, children's book stories and illustrations for like, people's like fantastic and really dumb ideas, of all spectrums. I worked with really great people. I worked with really dumb people, but I just kept working because I didn't come from a family of, wealth. We did okay, and they supported me greatly, but I also needed to find a way to support myself. And because of my incredible failure at the cafeteria job, I needed it to be artistic. But there was a time, for example, when I didn't get jobs. When I left Florida to San Francisco to study at the Atelier, I would, take on anything because I was desperate for money. I would constantly look on conceptart.org in their jobs forum. Back at the time, I'd look at Craigslist. I'd look at anywhere that said I needed, an artist. And I did some pretty weird shit. I even did like an event at like a hotel that was like this fashion thing, and I was painting models in a pool. It was super weird. And and I've done like, miniatures. I had a really nice client that I used to do miniatures for. I had a client that I did, comic book for, and it was all stuff that didn't pay me very much. And, it was just me trying to, continue, to pay for my own way. And then my first real job kind of came to me. Actually, it was NCSoft, Paragon Studios, that at the time was doing State of Heroes. Their art lead, Carolina Tello, she's fantastic. She contacted me and said, "Hey, Karla, I remember you from the girls forum and like conceptart.org, and I've been seeing your work, and you've been progressing, and we'd like to." Talk to you about a possible position. So it actually happened by sharing my work and my progress online. I didn't know it, but people were watching, and, it was just one of those things. It's like, wow. And so I got that one job, and then from there I left Paragon Studios for Kabam, and Kabam was an amazing place. I never expected to, most people think, oh, mobile company, but for me, it was like amazing. I got a chance to work with great artists, Mitch Morehouser, Brian Mattias, Alan Williams, and, many, many more. And it was just like, oh my God. And then from there, like, I did ILM, and how I got ILM was actually like, just time and place and being prepared. I went to a workshop in which Ian McKegg and Brom, were teaching at the same time. I was like, oh my God, like I have to go there, like in a heartbeat, like boom, take my money. Funny enough, that's a Terralang workshop, and I'm going to be doing one later this March. One of these, yeah. But yeah, no, and I was just like, holy crap, I gotta go. And I met Ian then, and I showed him my work, and and he was really excited by it, and he was like, "You're hired." I'm like, "Where?" I'm like, "I don't know, but you're hired." I'm like, "Oh my God." But I didn't hear anything from him, like 4 months after, 4 or 5 months, and but in the back of my mind I thought, it's fine. Like, I just got him to, he was just excited for my work, and at the time I had a couple magic cards under my belt, and I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. And then I message him, I'm like, hey, just want to, kind of keep in touch, and here's some work, so that, you're up to date with the work that I'm doing. And he's like, I'm in San Francisco. And I'm like, oh, what? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, we should go have coffee sometime. He's like, better yet, come visit me at ILM. And I went to visit him at ILM, and before I knew it, I was talking to the heads of the department, and it was an interview. And and I thought, oh my God, that was crazy, but I'm probably not going to get that. That's just too crazy. And like 2 months pass, and then out of nowhere, I would get a call on a Friday. hey Karla, it's Jennifer from ILM. I'm like, oh my god, hi. It's like, yeah, we'd like you to start next Monday. I'm like, I have another job. Oh no. So I kind of left that job, on leave of absence, and went to do ILM, and that became my job for 2 years. And then I was out of a job for a little bit, and then there was word that Marvel Studios needed a concept artist, and Ian once again was like, you should talk to them and set it up, and now I'm working for Marvel. I also touched base really quickly on Magic the Gathering, and that one is also really interesting. I applied because I played Magic the Gathering from when I was very young, and I applied to Wizards of the Coast about almost 4 years in a row, and I would get every year I'd get no answer whatsoever, nothing at all, no response. And I knew that people were being responded to because some of my friends were doing it, and they get instant response. I think I got even so desperate one night. I got super drunk, and I wrote Magic an email like, hey, I know people are being hired, please give me a chance. And didn't get a response to that at all. But how I got the gig for Magic the Gathering is that I went to Spectrum Live on the first year, and drunk on the bar, one of my friends, Travis Lewis, fantastic artist as well, goes like, Karla, give me your portfolio. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I hand him my iPad, and he handed it to the person next to me. And I didn't know, but it was the art director from Magic the Gathering. And he's like, oh my gosh, let's work on something. And I'm like, what the fuck? Here I've been applying to this job for years, and it just takes one moment. And that's kind of how it goes. It's like a natural progression of things, and you'll have moments where you're very, very, very busy, and you'll have moments where you won't be busy at all. But I think the most important thing, is to focus on your craft and focus on your technique, because that's the things. Those are the things that will get you the job. If you're good at what you do, there will always be a job. People always need good artists in illustration, and concept art, even in fine art. And there's never a shortage of people that need it. So it's one of those things where it's just focus on your craft. That's the one thing that is guaranteed to give you a better job and more job opportunities in the long run.
Good stuff. That's good stuff. So for the guys that missed the early intro, which is what I was hitting on, was the interviews are more about the struggle and what somebody like Karla, struggle is real. The struggle is real. And at the end of the day, people that we're going to interview in these I guess they're going to be YouTube videos. So they're human, and they went through the same stuff that you went through. So I'm going to wrap it up with my last. Not really. I think that was your cheek. That was your cheek.
No. I actually got a call. I'm doing the Skype call from my phone, and I got a call from an 800 number. Those assholes keep calling me every day saying, yeah, no, well, I'm using Skype on my phone, and I have this I don't know how, but every day I get calls of, congratulations, you have won. And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
And you sound just like that too.
Oh my god, I hate them with a passion. I hope whoever recorded that, just I'm gonna be like Louis C.K. I hope they die. I really do. They're going to die. We're all going to die, but I hope they die first, because I hate them. I hate what they do. The worst people. Anyway, you were saying. I'm sorry.
It's fine. What I was saying is the struggle is real, and a lot of people go through a bunch of shit, and the last question, or my last question for you, I guess, is what would you say to a younger self, the struggling Karla and the struggling guy in in the art industry that's trying to land jobs that feels like they're not getting better. They're, what do you say to them? What would you say? What's your advice to them?
Well, I'm going to say what I say to pretty much everybody that asked me this question. And it's almost like two answers. Number one, it's not a reflection, not being successful right away as an artist or not, creating the paintings that you want to create. That's not a reflection on you. That's a reflection on what you know at the time and the level of practice that you have at the time. And it's one of those things where it's just like it's a matter of pushing the self away from the frustration and seeing art as a puzzle piece to solve. And when you start suddenly seeing art as more of a puzzle and less of a reflection of yourself, then suddenly you can be more invested in, okay, well, how do I solve this puzzle? And by asking yourself that question, you're actively improving as an artist. If you paint with, intent, if you paint with the idea of how can I make this painting better? Little by little, every painting that you make will be better. And before you know it, you'll be at a place where you're like, oh, I guess I can apply to that job now and feel confident that I'll get hired. And that's kind of like where the second thing leads to. For the person that's trying to get a job and isn't, be honest with yourself, be honest, but don't be like mean to yourself either. Honesty doesn't mean be cruel to yourself. Honesty means to just take a quick look at where you're at. What is the professional level of things that are being made at this time? And it's not one of those things where it's like, oh no, I'm going to get depressed about it. No, you can get there. You can absolutely get there. But again, it just comes with the right knowledge and the right practice. And what does the right knowledge mean? Well, it literally means the artistic training that artists have had for like bajillion years. It means, life drawing, cast painting, cast drawing, painting outside, plein air painting, doing master studies. Master studies are so important and barely anybody does them, but they're so important because you're like, if you copy it one by one, you are learning directly what that master knew. Still lives, and then just doing that and then reading. There's some great reading material out there that can literally give anyone a great education in art. If possible, join an atelier, join a place that is known for its traditional, teachings in art. Even though it's, would be considered more fine art, it's still very applicable to illustration and, concept art. Join a community, joining a community is really important because suddenly you realize that your own struggles, your own fears aren't just yours, they're everyone's. Suddenly that makes you feel less lonely and that makes you feel less critical about yourself. And it kind of, again, it goes hand in hand with what I said earlier, like push yourself away from, the idea that failure is because there's something wrong with you. No, it's just a puzzle. And all you got to find is the right puzzle piece. That's it. That's what I would say.
That's good stuff. The struggle is real. So
it's real.
So I was gonna say last thing. That was my last question. So last thing, I want to talk about Karla. If you want to say anything, I know you're working currently for Marvel. I think you're doing stuff for Marvel. So is there any future plans for like you doing your own thing, or do you? What's your goal with arts? Just so we know where Karla is going. I want to know personally, like where is Karla going, and where is Karla's art going, and that's.
Well, I'm definitely very, 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 very happy with Marvel right now. But me, I want to paint more. I want to do my own fine art work. That is something that I'm actively working towards in 2016.
You mean traditionally?
Yeah, traditionally.
Nice.
I want to get back into oils. I want to continue doing pencil works. I still want to be a concept artist, though.
Which are sick, by the way. Which are sick. Your traditional stuff is fucking mind blowing. But anyway,
Thank
keep
you.
going.
It's one of those things where it's like I found I need to just balance the two things I love, a little more. I need to, and this for me is like a 5 to 6 year goal to have, concept art be like maybe 50.
I think I lost you. I think your cheeks hung up. Karla. Hello? Oh, her cheeks hung up, guys. I think Karla's cheeks hung up. She should be calling me back here in a second. Sorry, guys. There she is. there's
I think that
there's
was you because my cheeks didn't do shit.
it
Like
was you. It was your cheeks. It was seriously.
no, no.
It was your
But
cheeks.
anyway, as I was saying, I 5 years from now, I still want to be working on Marvel movies because they're fun as hell. They're really fun, and I want to be working in movies in general. I love film for concept art. It's like it's such a great, great. I don't know. There's like no limits to where my art could go. But I also want to be doing, fine art, and I want to be doing gallery shows. So if I could live like in a year, like 50% of the time it being like movies, and the other 50% of the time being fine art, I think I'd be a really happy camper.
Well, that's cool. As long as you're like, I think you're looking at it. As long as you're doing what you love, you'll be happy.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's good stuff. Well, that about wraps it up. Like, I don't want to take any more of your time, and thank you, Karla. Like, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
I'm honored. Like I was like I tell people, I'm not kissing ass. Like, seeing your stuff is mind blowing and it's inspirational to a lot of
Oh,
people.
thank you.
Um, and I'm more than happy to have you. Like, it's amazing, and hopefully we can have you again maybe next year. I'll write you and get in touch with you. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
we're
next year. Let's talk next year because by then, like, Doctor Strange will come out.
oh my god, Doctor Strange. Are you watching Star Wars, by the way?
A little tiny bit, but I really can't say anything. But I did a little bit, not too much.
Oh, you worked on it.
Just a little.
I didn't know that. Oh my god.
No, but just a little bit.
Just
Not enough to, not enough to like be like this is my movie now.
that's
Just
epic. Oh my
it's like a
god.
little beep.
So actually, I'm staying off
But I am
Facebook.
so
I'm.
excited to see it. Like
Oh my god.
I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna see it like 4 times or something like that.
Yeah, I'm staying off Facebook after this. Like, I'm gonna plug the interview, put it on YouTube, and then just stay away from Facebook. But
Yeah, that's smart.
yeah, I don't want to get angry. But thank you so much. Really, like you're so awesome. And next year, hopefully we get a another chance at interviewing you and seeing what's going on with your life. And guys, for those that don't know, next challenge coming up for Ascension 27 is Dan Levisi, Dan Levisi, and we're doing a pop culture challenge. Yeah, he's kind of awesome.
Oh, that sounds fun. Yeah,
So,
y'all should join.
so yeah, it'll be fun. Deadline is always on the 7th, which is January 7th. We still have a lot of time, so if you want to jump in, have fun. Again, the group is about that commitment and what Karla was just talking about, just kicking ass and taking names and and Shia LaBeoufing it and just doing it. So yeah, just do it. But just do it. But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks guys.
Thank you so much for having me and
Thanks.
have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for coming, and we'll see you guys next interview with Jamaro Kindred, who works for Blizzard, which everybody knows. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it, and thanks, Karla.
Bye.
I'll catch you guys later. Bye.